This is Your Superior Self, episode 60, Life with Passion, with author Christine McAlister.
I personally believe that we all have unique gifts, unique passions, unique talents, unique callings, unique causes that we want to serve, that we're passionate about, that we're designed to do. And those things are often really clear as kids, right? Like, I know you have kids. I have a 2-year-old. She has no shame about what she's into or not into. It was the same thing when I was a kid. You just have all kinds of permission to be who you are. And then you're trained to start fitting a mold, right? And to be a good student or a good employee because you get these rewards. And based on our situations, based on events that happen in our lives, based on sometimes tragedies or traumas, which I know has been part of my experience, there are opportunities that we can use for us to choose to make a different choice, right? It's something that we experience ourselves or something a friend or family goes through where we realize how much control we have over our lives. And I'm talking about sitting here in the US having this conversation, across the country with you. Like, we are empowered people who a lot of times do not feel or act that way. We don't act alive and like we have choice in the matter.
What is going on, Superior Nation? Welcome back to your favorite podcast, Your Superior Self, the podcast that breathes inspiration into your body to help get you motivated to become your superior self. I am your host, Trey Downs, and I am excited about today's episode, about passion, about the awakening of oneself, the learning that one is capable of all, that is capable of awakening this systematic sleep that we're in, to be conscious to the fact that we are capable of all things, regardless of the difficulty level of achieving those things. And to kind of solidify that idea, I want to read from the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. You might recognize this book from last episode, which I'm becoming a huge fan of Viktor Frankl's work. He has inspired me beyond measure. He is becoming easily my favorite author in his study of logotherapy. And I highly suggest that you look that up because it's changed the way that I look at life. And in his book, I will quote him here: "By the same token, every human being has the freedom to change at any instant. Therefore, we can predict his future only within the large framework of a statistical survey referring to a whole group. The individual personality, however, remains essentially unpredictable. The basis for any predictions will be represented by biological, psychological, or sociological conditions. Yet one of the main features of human existence is the capacity to rise above such conditions, to grow beyond them. Man is capable of changing the world for the better if possible, and of changing himself for the better if necessary." I think it's time for you to wake up. I think it's time for you, the listener, right now listening to this episode, to wake up to your greatness, to realize that you've been in this systematic slumber until right now, until you realize that you are the creator of your success, that you are the creator of your life, and it is your responsibility to find meaning in your life. Don't ask the question, what is the meaning of life? Ask the question, what is your meaning to life? What are you going to bring to the table? What are you going to change in the process? How are you going to make this world a better place? Reading Viktor Frankl's work has made me realize that I need to bring my value to this world. Instead of asking what value I can take away from life, instead make the statement of what I'm going to bring to life, what I'm going to create that is going to change someone else's outlook on life, what I'm going to bring to the table, what I'm going to create that's going to be of value, that is going to help other generations be better, and to help us get better, and to help us realize that we are capable of our own success, that we need to awaken to that fact, to get out of that systematic slumber. I have Christine McAlister, who is a business coach, and she is also the founder of Life with Passion and the best-selling author of the Income Replacement Formula, 7 Simple Steps to Doing What You Love and Making 6 Figures from Anywhere. She helps high achievers all over the world to replace their income and quit and stay out of their 9-to-5 jobs by building businesses out of their passions. I'm excited to have her on the show. We have a great conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Christine, I just want to say thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Trey. I'm really excited to be here.
So why don't you go ahead and give us an update? What's going on with you today?
I am a business and success coach for high achievers. I am really, really passionate about helping people thrive through entrepreneurship, and that's my life's work. And what I feel is my calling and my purpose that I sort of elusively searched for years and years and years, and have done a lot of different things. I have a super varied background career in education. This is what I've landed on. This is what I know to be the thing that I was designed to do. So the name of my company is Life with Passion. And as you can tell, it's aptly named because I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm also a mom and a wife and animal obsessed. I have 2 rescue dogs and 4 Arabian horses, and I live in the horse capital of the world in Louisville, Kentucky.
You got a lot going on.
I do. What about?
So what I want to talk about with you, because you're like this expert at leaving your 9-to-5. You didn't start out as an entrepreneur, right? You did the traditional schooling in the college theme. Like, talk me through that process. Like, at what point did you decide that you were this entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was a kid who was always side hustling after school. So lemonade stand, cookie stand, pet sitting, because again, the animals. And I knew when I entered college that I wanted to do my own thing. And I thought at that time that it looked like opening a production company. I was studying media communications. I was producing videos, music videos, that sort of thing. And I thought it looked like opening a production agency with my closest friends from the program. Sort of each of us using our unique skills because we could each specialize and kind of pull together this dream team. Well, none of us knew how to be entrepreneurs. Frankly, I believe that most schools and most of the schooling we receive doesn't teach us how to think like an entrepreneur. It teaches us how to think like an employee, right? So we learn to color in the lines, and I was one of those good kids, quote unquote, anyway, who just did what she was told and was good at school and kind of excelled in the things that you're supposed to. And so I went to college and grad school and gained all of this knowledge and experience, but I thought I was going to enter the film industry or go into television on one of the coasts. And instead I got a call from my undergrad dean in my last semester of grad school, and he just flat out offered me a job to come back and teach as a professor. I was 23. I had no intention of teaching ever. I hadn't taken any education classes. I almost just hung up on him because it was not my plan. But as I got to thinking about what I wanted to begin my professional career, I realized that I had a chance to have a little bit of a life, which I wouldn't have if I was pursuing television or film. And so I decided to do that. I decided to become a professor, and I did that. And then I became a career counselor for several years. So all the while, like, knowing and acting as if I was going to eventually become a full-time entrepreneur. So I started my side hustle like the minute I got a full-time job. And I worked at that side hustle for several years being scared to quit, feeling like I didn't have a plan, being really jealous of my friends that I was watching do it, trying to figure it out all on my own for free. And when I finally quit my job to run this business full time, which was an online marketing agency, I replaced my income in the first month. And I went, what the heck was I waiting for? Like, I cannot believe I suffered in this job that was slowly draining my soul, helping other people figure out how to maximize their careers while basically hating mine, right? Like the irony of that, right? Of just dragging myself in this super long commute every day. And I'm sure some of you can relate and going like, I can't see the path. I don't know how to quit. I will just keep going to this thing that I feel like I'm wasting my life away. So when I quit my job, I replaced my income in the first month and I went, okay, like we can do this. And that was my first company. This current business is my fourth. And so over the past, since 2005 is when I started my side hustle. So over the past 14 years, it's been iteration and pivot and try things and have side hustles in addition to my full-time hustle, right? And really learn from each of those to hone in on the thing that I want to be spending my time doing in the way that I want to be doing it.
I love that. I think the important thing to take away from that is that you didn't stop trying. You continuously pivoted. You didn't stop. You would run into a wall, but you would just turn around and try to, back up a little bit and try to find a way around it. Was there anyone helping you or mentoring you through this process?
Yeah, great question. So I had an unofficial mentor who I met with when I was still in my 9-to-5, and then in the beginning stages of my full-time foray into entrepreneurship as an online marketer. And it was unofficial. It was unpaid. It was a guy my own age out of the kindness of his heart. And it was helpful because he was somebody who had never had a real job. And I was, of course, jealous of that. And also he really showed me what was possible, right? Because he was ahead of me. But I still kind of had this thing in my mind of like, oh, that must be nice for him. But whatever lame excuses I told myself about why I couldn't have that and I couldn't succeed at the level he was. I didn't choose. Of course, I'd spent a ton of money in college and grad school, right? Loans, the whole thing, 2 private schools, because, that's normal and expected, quote unquote. But I was very much of the mindset that I think I see a lot of the time where it's like, well, I'll just check out more audiobooks from the library and listen to those and do everything for free and figure it out on my own because I'm capable and I should be able to figure this out, instead of going, probably the quickest way to get where I want to be is to just hire someone who's been there to hold me accountable and show me the path. And I finally did that in 2015. And that's when I was finally able to break through the income ceiling that I had been hitting, finally able to learn how to sort of step into the role of a business owner instead of just a freelancer solopreneur, which there's nothing wrong with. But after several years of doing, I was ready to become a CEO and really able to kind of clarify my vision and carry that out instead of letting my fear and my discomfort and my self-doubt dictate how far I was going to go.
So about 10 years it took you from 2005 to 2015. And that was with a mentor.
Yeah. So 10 years, 5 years to get out of my 9-to-5. And then 5 years of struggling on my own, really.
I still think that's pretty good. 6 years to make that transition. I don't think people understand the work that you have to put in, the planning that you have to put in to transition from a salary to a guarantee each week to this CEO role where nothing's planned, nothing is promised, nothing is, you can't rely on it, right? I mean, it's a scary leap of faith. How did you know that was for you? Like, was there signs? Was it, I mean, cause I know I struggle with this too, is like that faith, keeping the faith. Like you find like you keep running into these walls. It's like, what am I doing? Like, I have this salary, I have the benefits, I have all the people that, I look at, like sometimes I feel guilty. Like I feel guilty. Why can't I just settle for a 30-year job and have retirement?
Yes. Everyone around me looks like they're happy in their job. Like, why can't I be this person who's content? Right.
Do you talk to people that feel very similar to this?
Yes. Yes.
And like, what is your advice to them? Like when they say, what's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me where I'm not content.
Yep. So I feel like this is a way that we shame ourselves and hold ourselves back from our true potential, our superior selves, if you will, right? Because if we have this dream, it's not because we're crazy or we're wrong. It's how we're wired. There might literally be some people who are sitting in the cube next to you who are really happy, or they're just not awake, right? And they're just surviving. And I think that there's a mix from the people I've seen and worked with. Some of them are very fulfilled and happy and content. And some of them might be dying inside, but have convinced themselves that there's no other choice. And so I would say that like my clients quit their jobs much faster than I did because they're not doing it on their own, right? A lot of them in a matter of months. And it has so much to do with coming to first unlearn all of the training that you've had, to have someone else tell you what to do and to trust that that's going to result in a steady paycheck. And then to learn to trust yourself first and foremost, right? Because at the end of the day, like you said, you're the one running the business. You're the one making the decisions. You're creating your own job description. And you can create how much you enjoy it, or if you want and are unconscious about it, you're probably going to wind up creating what feels normal for you, which is how you felt inside your 9 to 5. Right? So much of it is that coming to more self-awareness and coming to understand the way that you think and the way that that affects your actions. And that's ultimately what makes the difference, is how much are you learning to think like an entrepreneur. That informs your decisions, as opposed to, let me take the outside structure and try to force it on myself, right? We all have unique gifts. We all have unique strengths. We all have different ways of working. And if you're starting a business online, guess what? There are 1,000,001 different ways to do that and be successful with it. But if you try to follow some guru's step-by-step proven thing, you're not them. That's just what worked for them, that they've then built out and monetized. I'm so passionate about this because like my background as a career counselor, I did a lot of personality assessments and stuff like that. And so I know myself well. I know how to analyze this for my clients. And I have a really rare personality type on the Myers-Briggs. And so I grew up the rarest. So I grew up like feeling like a total outsider and such a weirdo, right? Because there wasn't anyone around me like me. And if I try to apply XYZ person's business model to my business, it's not going to work for me, right? It's not going to feel natural. It's not going to feel normal. And so, a good mentor will help you figure out what's right for you rather than saying you have to do it this way. And that's what's ultimately going to lead you to a fulfilling business, as opposed to one that just feels like, well, I have another boss now because so-and-so said I have to do it this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolutely 100% like sense. Like to me, it's like every business model is different.
Yes.
And I think every person is different. Every business model is going to work differently for each business, and each person is going to fit differently with that business model. So you have to tailor it to what kind of person you are, just like you said. Now, you talked about online businesses. Is that your niche, online businesses, helping them build that?
Yeah. So my husband says that sounds sketchy and cheesy. So I don't know if there's a better way to describe that. If anybody has a suggestion, feel free to share that with me on social media. But he is also a dyed in the wool 9 to 5er, so opposites attract. But Yeah. So typically I'm working with people who want freedom. And the quickest way to get freedom, in my opinion, is to start a service-based business that you can run from anywhere with no overhead.
So give us like an example.
Yeah. So I believe that everybody at any point in their life already has something that they've mastered or that they've learned well enough to be able to teach others, right? So, or well enough to be able to serve others. So whether it's like you are starting something on the side and you want to be a virtual assistant because you're good on the computer and you can write emails and be organized, right? Or whether, like me, you started several businesses and you realize your true passion is helping others do the same. It can run the gamut. It can run the gamut from being an author, being a coach, being a consultant, being some kind of a virtual assistant or online business manager, or there's such a host of job titles that didn't exist a decade ago that exist in the information economy now, and that are monetizable, that don't necessarily exist in the same way in a brick and mortar world.
Now, what about longevity, right? So I think a lot of people fear, well, the demand is high now for online businesses. Like what happens later? Is there going to be some kind of scarcity? Is there, or not scarcity, but is there going to be some type of drop off?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that my story is a really perfect example of being open to the process. You know, the job that got me out of my 9 to 5, or the company that got me out of my 9 to 5, it was a really good fit for me at the time, was not a decade later when my life circumstances had changed, when my knowledge base had changed, and my desires had changed, and my confidence had changed, right? My skill set had changed. And so part of this process is being willing to take the ride, because I find that so many people want a 5-year plan when they quit their job. But we also know, or when they think about quitting their job, but we also know that clarity comes from taking action, not from sitting around thinking about it. So if you're trying to figure out what you want to do, sitting around and thinking about it on your commute or on the weekends for 5 years is not going to give you any more information about whether it's for you or make you any money, right? So having some general specificity is enough to begin taking action and make money and get clarity while helping other people, right? Not in a sleazy kind of taking advantage of anyone way, but like, for instance, I work with different people now than I did when I started this business 3.5 years ago. You know, my niche has evolved. My community has evolved. I wrote a book in the process, right? Like I'm talking to you right now. I'm a different person and a different consultant than I was when I was a newbie. And I work with different people as a result. So I think that part of it is knowing, just like in a job setting, you know, what's happening in the world. A lot of people are coming to me because they got laid off, right? Their company went through a riff and like now they're going, well, I can't trust the company anymore. Might as well trust myself. It's the same approach. We don't know what jobs they're going to be in the 9 to 5 world in 10 or 20 years. So in my opinion, the best job security is to create your own and to spread your paycheck, your income across multiple clients or customers, rather than having one that's your boss or your boss's boss's boss, or a boardroom who doesn't even know you, who's making a choice based on shareholders and not based on your actual talent.
I like that. And then you have annual ratings of your yearly, progress, if you have any, and then you might get something in return for that. But I mean, all your hard work goes eventually to the shareholders. I mean, whereas when you're the owner of your own business, you're getting all the benefits. You're getting the revenue. You're expanding your business when you're working hard. When your yearly rating comes in, per se, your yearly rating is the revenue that you're going to generate from your business.
Yeah.
I mean, you are directly linked to your success.
Exactly. And that was a big reason I wanted to quit because I knew I was working in a setting where it didn't matter if I farted around and watched Netflix all day, I wasn't going to get a raise. Or if I worked my butt off and was the best performer in the office, it wasn't going to matter. And so I wanted some extrinsic motivation. I wanted to have the opportunity to go, this low paying salary is not my income ceiling. I want to be responsible for my results. Like I'm more motivated than that.
Before you said something that really, really hit me. And it was like, you're sitting in the cube and the person next to you is either content or they're not yet awake. What do you mean by awake?
I personally believe that we all have unique gifts, unique passions, unique talents, unique callings, unique causes that we want to serve, that we're passionate about, that we're designed to do. And those things are often really clear as kids, right? Like, I know you have kids. I have a 2-year-old. She has no shame about what she's into or not into. It was the same thing when I was a kid. You just have all kinds of permission to be who you are. And then you're trained to start fitting a mold, right? And to be a good student or a good employee because you get these rewards. And based on our situations, based on events that happen in our lives, based on sometimes tragedies or traumas, which I know has been part of my experience, there are opportunities that we can use for us to choose to make a different choice, right? It's something that we experience ourselves or something a friend or family goes through where we realize how much control we have over our lives. And I'm talking about sitting here in the US having this conversation, across the country with you. Like we are empowered people who a lot of times do not feel or act that way. We don't act alive and like we have choice in the matter. And one of my big missions is to help people know that, like, no matter what they've been through, they can not only survive it, but go on to thrive and become awake and live awake. And I personally believe that if we have a calling or a bent toward entrepreneurship, that's the best way to live that life, because it's not only, and we all know this, it's not only the designing the work that we love, but it's also designing the life that we want to have, to support, to really, so that the work can support the life. Right.
I love that. I think when you say awake, I didn't realize that I was asleep until something inside of me was inspired. Right. So it's a long story. Like it's crazy. Like I became Catholic, and it was, not to get in religion, but I didn't think that I could do that. Like I was surviving. I was just surviving. I was on cruise control. I was just doing my daily job. I was living in this comfortable space, and I was given an opportunity to improve myself. And then when I started improving myself and doing work, it was kind of like one thing happened right after another. And then I started looking at, financial research, stuff that had scared me before, right? Things that I had no interest in. I was like, why don't I have interest in this? Well, because I don't know anything about it. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So why don't I go ahead and start looking at things that make me uncomfortable and start attacking them? And that's what I did. I started doing one thing after the next. The next thing you know, I'm going back to school. I'm going back online. I'm going as far as when I say online, I mean, I'm going online classes, and I'm intern getting my degree, something that I never thought that I could do as a parent, as a father, just because of, obviously, how limited our time is with our full-time jobs plus being a parent. But one thing led to another. But when I woke up, it was like I could continue to be on cruise control or just survive, or I can make a left turn and start living my life. And that's what life really is the trial and errors of trying to succeed. If you think about it, like everyone's success only lasts like, I don't know, 10 seconds. It's everything up to that success that makes it successful.
Yep.
Because the journey, that's the journey. I mean, think about it. Like your biggest success, how long did that joy last? You know, like a day, a week, but you're always going to remember what, you know, you're going to grow from the journey itself, not necessarily the success.
Totally. And I think that's something that a lot of us resist. I know I have, because I used to think, oh, when I get to X income level, or I get to X accomplishment, or I do whatever thing, take whatever trip, have whatever, you know, material thing, then I will be happy. Then I will have arrived. Then that will mean I'm worth something or whatever. But I think that you're so right. 99% of this, and I tell my clients this, 99% of like becoming an entrepreneur at whatever level you want is about you becoming the person capable of handling that level, enjoying it, succeeding at it, and like continuing to thrive at it, right? As opposed to becoming the overnight rags to riches lottery winner who is incapable of handling that money because they don't know how, they never have. And we all know the stats, they lose it, right? So instead it's like becoming that person, developing into that person, like you said, who is slowly building confidence and taking those steps, and then building more confidence from taking those steps. And it's just like a muscle, to the point where you look and go, I can't believe I did all that stuff that I never thought I could do. But it started with like taking that consistent action and asking, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? And that's how you build a successful career as an entrepreneur, right? Not going, this is what it has to be, and if the market changes tomorrow, I'm totally screwed, and, you know, I'm a failure, right? But again, like trusting yourself that where you are and having that dream is enough to get you to the next step, whatever that is.
What was the exact moment that changed your outlook on life and made you want to be an entrepreneur? Like that was the final decider that I'm going to go this route. Do you remember exactly when the moment was, and what was it?
That's a great question. I would say there are like two pivotal moments in my journey. One of them was making the decision that no matter what, I was finally going to pursue my side hustle full time, right? Because at that point, it was fun. I was dabbling. I was making a little bit of money, but I wasn't totally committed, right? I hadn't made the decision, like you said, which I believe is the first step in really moving toward being a successful entrepreneur. And I would say it was being totally demeaned by my boss. It was a toxic situation. I felt like I had zero power. I already mentioned I knew whatever I did, I wasn't going to get a raise. I felt unliked, unappreciated. And there was honestly a moment where I thought about letting my car go off the road, because I was spending my hours, my days, my life in my 20s doing something that I knew wasn't my calling. And as a result, I was depressed and I felt trapped, which is a terrible state to be in, right? To not see that you have options. I didn't know how to teach my brain that. And that was the result. And it might sound really dramatic, but I know there are other people out there who've had those desperate thoughts, because when you're spending all of your time doing something that doesn't energize you and drains you instead, and you can't see the path out, then for some of us who deal with depression and anxiety, like that can be a logical, quote unquote, conclusion. I mean, not logical, but you understand what I'm saying. It can be a path. So that was one piece for me that obviously stands out and was scary and awakening at the same time. And that led me toward quitting to go full time in my online marketing agency. And then 5 years later, I was running that agency, but I still wasn't learning to think like an entrepreneur. I still didn't know how to delegate. I didn't know how to hang out with family and not go off to the bathroom to sneak and check my emails and make sure that no client needed me. And so I was again headed toward burnout and acting like an employee in my own business rather than taking charge and saying, this is what I want for my life, and my business is going to conform to that. And I was expecting my first child at the time. And I had this vague sense that I had something else that I was supposed to be doing. But frankly, it was comfortable. I was booked out. I had replaced my income. It was a steady paycheck again. And I was like, well, whatever, fear, self-doubt, lack of motivation, kind of keeping me stuck in this cycle. I didn't really know what I was going to do for maternity leave. I was like, well, it's going to figure itself out. It has to, right? Like, this thing has a timeline. So I'm headed for my due date. And just shortly before my due date, after a perfect pregnancy, I went to the doctor for one of my last routine visits, and the baby suddenly had no heartbeat. So I had gone through this pregnancy, everything was wonderful. No one's monitoring me extra. There's nothing to monitor. Everything's perfect, measuring everything, whatever. All of the appointments are fine. It's go home, put your feet up, and wait to go into labor. The bag was packed. The car seat was in the car. And in that moment, as you would imagine, my life totally changed. Now I became this person who had this experience I didn't even know was possible. And all of the repercussions of having to go through going to the hospital, being induced to deliver this baby that had already passed away, being handed brochures on how to plan a funeral for your baby, when I'm in the hospital with a 9 months pregnant belly waiting to deliver her. I mean, it was like the most surreal experience, and also a redefining one, because I knew that this experience and this moment and her life was going to irrevocably change me. And what came out of that for me was another level of awakeness and a desire to go big, because frankly, I had nothing else to lose. I knew that nothing worse could ever happen to me. That living with that loss was the most tragic thing I could ever experience. And to begin to pick up the pieces and figure out how to turn my work, because I'm a person who I love to work, right? And I'm very motivated by work that has meaning. To figure out how to turn that into meaning and legacy began to drive me past my fear and my self-doubt of going to the next level. And so that is when I hired my first paid mentor. And that is when I got serious about going, it's time to become a business owner. It's time to do work that really matters. It's time to do the thing that's in my zone of genius that only I can do, come hell or high water. And that is the moment that Life with Passion was born. And that is why I do what I do today, because number one, I know a lot of us have survived horrible, terrible things and are carrying that around. And I want people to know that they can reframe their story to motivate them and drive them toward their dreams and their desires. And number two, if you haven't gone through something life-altering and tragic, I want you to know that you don't have to in order to wake up and do the thing that maybe you've been scared to do, or that has felt overwhelming to you, or that you felt like you haven't had enough time to do. You can start with 5 minutes a day.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm over here like getting emotional, like it's just, and to go through what you did and to be where you're at today is really a testament to the type of person that you are and the drive that you have. And if anything, like some people that would just crush them and they wouldn't be able to get over that and pull themselves up. Like, what did you have? Did you have a book? Did you have a person in your life besides the mentor that really pulled you up and fired that inspiration inside of you?
It's a great question. I had people around me who, a lot of them were surprising, who kind of came out of the woodwork in support of me. I think anybody who's been through a sudden loss or tragedy will know that, like, maybe the people that you thought you were closest to or that you expect to show up for you sometimes are the ones that like can't handle it themselves. And so they disappear. And then sometimes the ones who have been through that stuff but have been kind of quiet about it are the ones who aren't scared, aren't worried about sitting with something that's so uncomfortable or saying the wrong thing or whatever, because they know there's nothing they can say and they're just not even stressing about it, right? But they're comfortable to come over and sit with you while you cry or while you deal. And so I think like saying yes to people, just doing simple things like bringing meals or, doing something to feel like they were helping in some way. That was a big deal for me because I wasn't good at accepting help. And I have since learned that that's a key to resilience, which is, of course, what you need to survive something like that. And I didn't know that I had it or didn't have it. I mean, you kind of have to, for me, it was experiencing that in order to have that discovery. But I was really grateful that in the immediacy, like the hospital had a procedure to memorialize some memories, because that's the only time that we had with our daughter, and had a follow-up procedure. And we knew enough to start researching, we're going to need some resources in order to survive this, right? So finding people who'd been through it, what did they do, right? All of that stuff, to the point where we started a nonprofit in our daughter's honor that gives grants to those organizations that basically helped us to survive.
That's beautiful. What's the name of your daughter?
Maeve.
Oh, I like that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, last episode, it's really cool that you mentioned that, because I made a call out to everyone who is running and founding nonprofits, because I think that I would like to get the word out more and at least put on my website a list of nonprofits that way. Because I feel like if we need to start giving more of ourselves. If you're in a spot in your life where things are not going well enough, I feel like, and I'm a big believer that you're not giving enough service of yourself. Like you need to like write it with the universe, and you need to spin the wheel back in your favor. And the first way you can do that is by giving more of yourself to people that either need it or to a cause that could do good in this world. You need to counteract it. You need to balance that those energies from, just feeling like you're just in this negative vibe and just you'd be surprised of how much that can change where you're at in life. Where I know a couple times where I just felt like things weren't going right. I felt like no matter what I did, I was in a rut. But as soon as I started giving more myself, volunteering or giving more service, it was like, or donating or whatever, it just seemed like something turned and things started getting better.
I love that. Yeah, it really takes the focus off of all the things that are going wrong, right? And I think it's how we're designed, that when we're giving, that when we're serving, we receive something in return, right? And it shifts our focus to that altruism gene, right? And to recognizing that we're not alone in this, and connecting with others and having a different perspective.
And you also said like people are afraid to not to ask for help, but they feel like they don't want it. Like it's a sign of weakness, right? Like,
Yeah.
and being a
Yeah.
mentor, like I feel like you'd be an awesome one just because your experiences. Like, what would your advice be to those that are just pushing off the help, like, and don't realize how much they need it?
Yeah. I think it's starting with something really small. Like even something as simple as accepting a compliment. I mean, I used to be one of those people who was like, yeah, thanks, but this old thing or whatever, the equivalent, right? Couldn't accept it and just say, "Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing that," without deflecting it or turning it right back around and being like, "Oh, thanks. I love your fill in the blank too," right? So I think even something like that that isn't going, I'm going to go um hire a mentor first off or whatever can can be life-changing because it's allowing yourself to receive instead of just to give, right? Because it's got to go both ways in order for you to have a fulfilling life. If you're a person who just gives all the time, eventually you're going to run out of energy or you're going to resent the people you're giving to or the way that you're giving or whatever. But being able to receive and let other people have the good feelings from giving to you, right? Is that beautiful, like symbiotic way that we're designed. So I think it's even just starting and going like, what's the smallest thing that I could do? I could accept a compliment. I could accept someone's offer for help. I mean, I almost didn't let people bring me meals because I was like, I'm able bodied and I don't have a baby in my arms to care for. Like, I should, quote unquote, be cooking for myself. There's no reason I can't. And it was other people who were more sane than I was at that point in my grief journey going, Christine, just let people do something. They know there's nothing that they can do. They want to do something. It's a token, it's a gesture. Let them bring you food, right? Or let them send you a gift card if they're across the country. And you know what? Of course, I didn't feel like cooking, right? I was doing really well if I could take a shower on my to-do list every so often and take a shower so I could check it off my to-do list and feel productive. So it's like in those moments when someone offers, say yes, right? Because chances are somebody's offering in your life if you look for it, you'll find them.
So sitting back and looking back, how far you've come, what you've been through, what is your dream right now?
My dream is to take this message bigger because specifically when it comes to infertility, pregnancy loss, miscarriage, all those types of things. Like I didn't mention, but before I lost Maeve full term, I had 3 early miscarriages. And, sort of at the time when miscarriages, losing a pregnancy is more typical. And what I came to learn is that 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in some kind of a loss. So everybody has either been through it or knows someone. Everybody. And 1 in 160 pregnancies ends in a stillbirth, which is what I had. And I thought it was non-existent, right? So like from my personal experience, I am working to change the conversation around this because if you're a parent, like somebody, either you've been through it or a sibling has or a parent has or a good friend of yours has or is. And we tend to stuff it and we tend to not process the grief because it's uncomfortable and it's not normal in most cultures. And I feel passionately that like if you're going to walk around with that grief inside of you, there should be a space to be able to remember that life, right? And I think that there's something built into us as parents that like those of us who have lost a child, like our biggest desire is that they're never forgotten. And when you lose a pregnancy or a child, you know, before or after birth, like you don't have memories to help keep alive, right?
You don't. Like, do you have dreams of like interacting with her?
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like she comes to me in like birds. Interestingly enough, like I had a,
That's funny you say that because like always, and I don't mean to interrupt. Like I've always been told that like cardinals are someone visiting you. Like so, somebody that you care about who passed on. Like whenever you see a cardinal, like that's them visiting you.
you know, what's really amazing about you saying that, Trey, is that for about, let me count this, for over 4 months now, almost every day I have had this male cardinal who comes and um, bangs into my big, like triple pane sliding glass door. And okay, so we live in Louisville, which I am not a sports person, but I think that you are, right? You're a sports fan. So we live in Louisville, and the big college basketball rivalry here is the University of Louisville Cardinals and the University of Kentucky Wildcats. My husband, even though we live here, is a rabid Kentucky Wildcat fan. And so he's not thrilled about the fact that a Cardinal, the rivalry, is throwing himself into the window every day for 4 months. I mean, on repeat. And he usually shows up when I'm meditating, which is real bizarre. But we also had a female cardinal nest in this rose tree that somebody gave me right after Maeve died. And I was like, this is too much coincidence. So, like, cardinals have shown up for me in the 4 years since she passed. And I've also had a pair of mourning doves that show up a lot and hang out and nest in our trees. And I've even done things like dive bomb my car window and just stuff where you're like, come, I wasn't into this stuff at all. And then, you know, of course, you're looking for a way to connect with this child whose eyes you never saw, whose voice you never heard, right? And I really do feel like that's a very clear way that she shows up and says, "Hey, I'm still hanging around."
There you go. I mean, we used to have a cardinal back in Delaware that would fly into our big window like every morning on the dot, like waking me up like for school. And then I used to have to put oven mitts on my first car, the mirrors, because it would come up and it would see its reflection and start pecking at it. And then like, so my, what was it? My stepmom and her mother had these oven mitts, and they made these like little things you cover up on your mirror. It was ridiculous. I mean, you see all these cars lined up in our driveway with these oven mitts on it, and it was because of this one cardinal.
Well, and at first you're like, okay, he's just seeing himself. He's fighting himself. I'm sorry, not sorry. After 4.5 months and showing up specifically when I'm meditating, like, this is not a matter of, you know, a dumb blizzard.
I was always told that, and I believe it to this day. Like, I won't see a cardinal, and then I'll see him like randomly, and I believe it for sure. For sure. But my buddy, he lost his daughter not too long ago, and what was it? He was going through the grieving process, and he recommended a book to me, which was called, I'm looking up right now. I have it on Audible. I think it's like Life After Death or something like that. It's hold on, I'll look it up real quick. It's really helped him as far as with the whole grieving process, because hold on real quick. It is Answers About the Afterlife with Bob Olson. And he's like this private investigator. He was a private investigator for like 15 years, and then he lost his father, and then he went into like this big research phase where he would go into a lot of mediums and sit through these processes, and he just talks about how they never leave us. They're always there. They're always there with us, and they're always interacting with us with signs. They're not, you know, they obviously can't give us physical signs because they're not in our realm anymore. But you know, going through your life journey, like have you ever been like conscious of the signs that were given to you that this is the path that you're supposed to be on?
Yeah, I would say those darn birds, right, have been very, very clear to me. And they've also shown up at like some really pivotal points in my business journey, because obviously you might look and be asking, well, how do the two relate, right? Like losing a daughter and entrepreneurship. But for me, I mean, she's the reason that I do this, right? She's the reason that I made this change. I can remember my dad works in an office space inside the factory in Franklin, Kentucky, which is a combined office retail space. It was an old factory, like in the 20s and 30s, that they've refurbished and turned into this mixed use space. And there's this really cool hipster coffee shop there. And I was thinking about writing my book. And I knew that Maeve was going to feature really heavily in it. And I knew that I was really inspired by historical figures who had taken that moment of loss and had done something. Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich, it's like they were introduced to their other selves when they went through this journey. And one of the people he identifies, that book is 100 years old, right? So written in the early 1900s. One of the people he identifies is Abraham Lincoln, having lost his first love, and that having started to shape him in the direction of the man that he became before all the other tragedy in his life. And so I went into this hipster coffee shop. I'm like, I'm definitely not cool enough to be here, but I want a tea. So I go in and I'm ordering from the really cool Nashville barista. And I look up and there's this massive hipster drawing sketch painting of Lincoln on the wall. And the name of the place is Honest Coffee Roasters. I was like, oh, I get it. But I went, oh my gosh, I was just having this total mind conversation conflict over whether I'm going to really commit to writing this book and whether this is my work. And I see this and I was like, immediately, I have to take a picture because this is so clear to me. And from that moment, like I committed to seeing this thing through despite my fears and my overwhelm about being a person who writes and self-publishes a book.
That is awesome. Well, before I don't talk about it, what is your book? Because we've been talking about everything but that. Like, what's the title of your book? Where can people find it?
Yeah. So the book is called The Income Replacement Formula, 7 Simple Steps to Doing What You Love and Making 6 Figures from Anywhere. And it is really a testament to having a clear vision because I went on to I shared with you how I knew I was supposed to write it. And I went on after losing Maeve to have what the loss community calls a rainbow baby. So the rainbow after the storm. And she was 3 months old when it became clear to me that I needed to write this book. So, great timing. Parents know, right? Still up around the clock. I'm like, this is obviously the time in the year to write a book. But really it combines my personal story, which of course Maeve features heavily in, with a lot of the people I've gotten to work with and know, and the exercises and tools that you can use to figure out exactly what it is that you want to do, how to develop the mindset of somebody who believes they can do it and take action on that, right? Overcoming all this crap we've talked about, procrastination, perfectionism, fear and self-doubt that holds most of us back for most of our lives. And take simple action, even when you have a full-time job and a family, to start to build your business in a way that's right for you. And so that's why I wrote the book, is to share how to do that. Like, demystify the process. Let's simplify it. Like, for most of us, one of my clients told me that a monk told him this. Thinking about it is hard. Doing it is easy, right? So for most of us, sitting down and putting together a sentence is easy. But thinking about, oh my gosh, what are people going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm cheesy or salesy or whatever? That's the thing that's hard. So starting a business and the strategy behind it can be simple if you let it. And so much of that is just unlearning what you've learned and beginning to take action toward what you want your life to look like, rather than letting the fear of what you don't want it to look like dictate it. So self-published, so the print, the Kindle, the Audible version with me reading it and acting like the same crazy person you're hearing talk right now, is on Amazon and Audible. I will say, I've heard it's entertaining. So good. I'm glad. It should be fun to learn. And you can also get a free chapter of it if you want to get a taste and get the 7 chapters, or the 7 steps, get the overview, see if it's for you. At lifewithpassion.com/free chapter.
Make sure you guys go pick that book up. I'm definitely, as soon as I'm done with this interview, I'm going to go and order it. I could talk to you all night. Like, seriously.
I love this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'll come back anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, because I can relate to you on everything that you're hitting on and what you're doing. But I want to respect your time. Lastly, before we go, let's do this. Let's say that a listener has an opportunity to talk to you. Let's say, like, talk to me like I'm the listener right now, and say, this is my problem. I'm in a 9-to-5 and I'm not content. I'm just like you. I'm dreading driving to work. I'm listening to Audible books. I'm kind of feeling myself a little bit. I'm getting that courage. I haven't yet decided on what I want to do, but I know there is a spark there that wants to engulf in flames, and I need your help right now to help me spark that fire.
I love that. I think the most important thing that you can do at this stage of your business building journey is to stoke that fire. I think that a lot of times what happens is we go, I want to start a business. I immediately need to open up 500 tabs on Google and look at all the possibilities and do the strengths and weaknesses analysis and the competitive research analysis, and like totally overwhelm myself and numb myself until I am watching Netflix and eating or drinking numbing food or drink of choice, right? So I don't have to think about it anymore. But what I would say is, it's kind of like having a baby where you got to protect that business baby. You have to protect that spark of an idea. I don't care if you have no idea what you want to do, no idea what you want to offer. The most important thing that you can do at that point is make a decision that you're going to pursue it. Because the roots of the word decide mean to cut off. So if you're saying, I'm going to pursue this and I'm open to the next step, then your brain has a better assignment than looking for all of the reasons why it's not going to work or why it can't happen. Because if you tell it that's what's important, it's going to go find a bunch of reasons. But if you say, I believe that this can happen, like, I was super inspired by listening to Christine and Trey, then ask yourself, okay, well, what's the next thing that I could do right now? Obviously, you can download a free chapter of my book, or you can just go, listen, I believe that I've made a decision. I'm willing to take the next step. And I believe that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I believe that the next step is in front of me because I am only making myself available to take that next step. And then look for it, right? It could be a conversation you have that day, that night, the next day. The only thing, as a paraphrase of a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quote, all you have to do is take the next step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. And we want to because it makes us feel safe. But the truth is, the only thing you're responsible for, the only thing that's going to get you more clarity, the only thing that's going to move you forward is taking one teeny tiny little step in faith, 5 minutes today. That will kind of like relax your nervous system, calm down that fight or flight of like feeling like you're going to die. You don't have to walk in and quit tomorrow or today or next week, but you will have that inner confidence that you're moving forward toward the thing that's calling you, and that the steps are being laid out for you along the way as you take them.
You gotta have faith. I love it.
Yep.
Her name is Christine McAlister. I want to say thank you so much for joining this show. It has been an honor.
Thank you for having me.
I want to say thank you to Christine for coming on the show and hanging out with us today. Make sure to leave a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts from. And if this is your first episode, please hit subscribe and check out some of the past episodes. You can check me out on Facebook at Trey Downs, Downes, on Instagram at TDowns80, and on Twitter at DownsTrey. Thank you guys. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you guys later.